Continuing Zodiac's training today. He's had 3 days of being in the bitten rig, and actually this is the second time I've line drove him. I did it for about an hour yesterday, and it went pretty well. I should have had the camera, but I was alone yesterday. I didn't have any help for the camera, so we're doing it today. We'll see his progress. He's coming along real nicely. A sensible horse. So real simple, you know, 2 days of the bitten rigging like you saw in that other video, and 3 days of that rather, and then we started line driving him. Just put his harness on and a long set of single lines, and you will want to whip. We're not going to beat the hell out of our horse or anything, but they're going to need to know to go forward. During this exercise, most of the things a horse does wrong are the driver's fault more than the horse's fault. You'll find that. Yeah, his barn manners are going to need to continue to improve. He doesn't need to do that kind of stuff. And when he gets that stuff right, he'll be well on the path to driving better too. But you'll see what I mean as we're driving, because I know I'll probably make a few mistakes that will make the horse look bad when it was really my mistake. There'll be specific areas we'll show. But if you have a helper, the best thing to do is you kind of stand back there on the lines and your helper lead the horse. And then little by little your helper doesn't lead the horse and it's just you on the lines. But if you don't have a helper, this is what I do. This is what I did last night. And since Nick's running the camera, this is what we're going to do today. I'll just kind of lead the horse and then drop back and drive him. Make sure your lines aren't twisted. Make sure they're not hooked over a hame or something like that. So when you drop back, you have control with the lines, and be ready to tap him on the butt with a whip. If you're doing everything right, you should be able to, you'll need the whip a few times to really get him line driving good. But you shouldn't need to touch him any harder than you do to smack a fly. You shouldn't need to go bananas with it. And it should be a couple taps, and usually one tap will do it. But Nick, he's behind me on the video here, and he had a great day today. He worked Elvis and Zodiac 4 miles, got them sweated up. They're gonna shed. We don't have a particular reason we're working that team. Their training is where it should be. I just want to keep them in shape for when the mud dries and we're back in the woods. So that's why we're working them, is in order to just keep them in shape for being in the woods. And then, you know, pulls are right around the corner, so we're going to want to work them for pulling also. We'll get Jim out too. I just thought it was more important for Elvis is overweight, so he needs to lose some weight if he's going to pull in the lightweight class this year. And Zodiac, it never hurts his training as early on as it is. About a year ago today, he was at this stage of training. Nick, what kind of shape are you in? We'll know, because we're going to hear you huffing and puffing if when you're walking around with us on the camera. Be like Brenda Gordon, Jim's wife. Always amazes me how we don't hear her breathing hard and being out of breath when she's out there. That's a tough job, walking with them horses all day and not being out of breath. So she must have a good cardio program. Well, here we go. I'm going to lead him and then drop back. There we go. Now I like to stay back a ways. He's remembering last night's lesson. That way I don't get kicked. Some horses do kick. There you go. His hesitation was more me than it was him. Trying to get a grip on my lines, trying to walk. But to do this well, the first thing you need to be able to do is walk and chew gum at the same time. If you can't do two things at once, you're not going to do well with this. Because you're driving horses every minute, no matter what your footing is. And that horse is going to change angles all the time. So try and get in front of us if you can, Nick. that'll be good for the horse to see somebody in front of him also, especially when you go past that blinder. Be like, whoa, somebody's there. I'm extremely happy with this horse. We're 4 days into his training. This is second day line driving him. He's incredibly sensible. Don't expect all horses to be that good. I will say more and more horses are getting better. Them pulling breds, he's pulling bred. They're getting smarter too. You know, they're tractable. You know, the pulling breds of today remind me of a Suffolk as far as willingness to pull and being trainable. Every breed's a little different, and every individual horse is different. His full brother, holy cow, it was a rodeo when we were working him out here. You know, single a year ago, teaching him this stuff. This guy didn't have really didn't have any moments yesterday. He did a fine job. As far as the different breeds go, I was in Iowa a couple of years ago, and 2 years ago, I guess it was. Fella had hitch horses out there, and he had Clydesdales, and he told me, he said, if I got a Clydesdale that wants to run away, I'm excited. You know? Ooh, not quite that way with these pulling breds, but they're definitely a different horse than they were years ago. Now, if you look around here, this is oh my gosh. Maybe show that side, it looks a little better. This is our plowing. That was corn stubble last year. We didn't get it all plowed last fall. Ooh. Good boy. We're not gonna ask too much out of him standing. I'm much more concerned about getting this horse to drive and yield to the lines and start when I give him the command. My command is a chirp. You can do whatever you want. Get it. All right. Woo. See right there, I was loose lining on the right line. Like I said, some of this is going to be my fault. And I've done this since I was 8 years old, but still 7 years old, and I still don't always get it right. There we go. Who knows what he saw, why he stopped. Could have been our dog. Could have been something he smelled. Nick, you're doing pretty well not breathing hard. It's a lot easier for me not to breathe hard than it is Nick. I'm kind of getting pulled along by the lines. Nick doesn't have any support like that. I almost think we could start plowing as quick as tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ground doesn't seem all that muddy. Probably wouldn't hurt to have that elm tree on the load with the logs we sold, the elm logs we sold this year. Ooh. Ooh. He's spooky. He's just a boy. Our job is to calm him down. Show him nothing's gonna hurt him. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, I'm working with whoa more than I did yesterday. Yesterday I was just working on backing up. You see these stone walls around here? My Amish neighbors, they own this land actually here, but they're not big on picking stone. I don't know why with that old equipment, but it reminds me of a story my dad told. A guy moved to West Union down in southeastern Allegheny County, where my dad's from, and most of my family's from there. And he got a guy moved in there from Lancaster County or somewhere. And he said to the old farmer, "Are there many stones on this farm?" And the farmer said, "No, look at those stone rows. They got them all picked off." Anybody that ever lived on a stony farm, anybody that ever lived on a stony farm knows better than that. You never get them all picked off. You got to save some for seed every year. Fred Wolfer over in Centerville, he's an artist with a team of horses, and he's an artist with a plow. Fred is, I think he's going to be 94 this year, and I bet you'll see him out plowing with a team of horses on his Oliver plow. Anyway, Fred always says about it, Allegheny County, he says it's so stony in Allegheny County that the woodchucks dig holes with tears in their eyes. Really, here where we live, it's not that bad. Good gravel country, but not very stony. I mean, compared to other places. So I quietly give him commands. Like Ha, like G. Probably all this extra talking isn't helping him any either. I just thought of that. But he definitely knows when I'm giving him a command, as opposed to when I'm talking to the camera or talking to Nick or whoever I might talk to. You talk to me a lot, Brandt. Yeah, it's talking to you, Pipsqueak. Yeah, we have good conversations. That's what invisible friends are for. I get you. The reason he knows... Hey, I was talking. Later, you can have your own video. I'm going to hold you to that. The reason he knows when I'm about to give him a command is quite simple. I put a little extra pressure on the lines. It's kind of like an advance command, a preparatory command, Les Barden used to call it. So I'll demonstrate that a little bit here. We're going to turn left. I'm pulling a little, and then a little more. Now notice when I turn left, I'm keeping tension on that outside line. See, he wants to go back toward the barn, but he's a smart boy. He's yielding to that pressure. But you don't want to lose line on the outside line, whichever direction you're turning. I think we're going to turn left once more just to work on it. Good boy. Good boy. The way you want to think of these lines, whether you're driving a team, a single horse, a 6-horse hitch, when you're driving draft horses, you want to look at these lines like they're 2 strings hooked to the handlebars of a bicycle. What about a tricycle like Trigger? Yeah, a tricycle like Trigger. Shut up, you can talk later. Jeez, Nick, is he that rude to you? 2 strings hooked to the handlebars on a bicycle. Now, what happens if you're riding your bicycle and you let up on one string, but you pull the other? It's going to jackknife, and you're going to go over the handlebars. So when you go around the corner, you kind of want to pull in on one and let loose of the other just a little, but not completely let loose. Maybe think of driving a skid steer or a bulldozer to a little degree, or steering a tractor with brakes, something along those lines, if you're familiar. But the best example is a bicycle. And you know, 15, 20 years ago, there was a trend where we'd rig up tricycles with lines and people would drive them. Somebody would pull them. And it's actually a pretty good exercise for us. So I'm steering him to the left. And now we're going to turn to the right. Geez. The other thing you want to do, stay behind the horse when possible. Especially a young boy like this. It makes your driving a lot better. It makes it a lot easier. So here's what I mean. I hate to show you a bad example on a young horse, but now I'm not behind him. And that's just not going near as well as it does when I'm behind him. You're going to have to take some extra steps in order to stay behind him. Same thing is true with a team. When I'm turning a team in a circle like that, I actually will turn sideways and walk right like this. So I stay behind the team. Gee. And I do that with a single horse. I don't mind my dog out here playing, especially as time goes on. He needs to get used to stuff like that. He needs to know there's going to be dogs. There's going to be other animals. There's going to be distractions. His job is to pay attention to the signals I give him, mostly with the lines and somewhat with the voice commands. So something like that dog doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Plus, it's good for Mojo to get out here and get some exercise. Because I've been performing animal abuse with Mojo, according to one of the comments once. And I'll tell you what, sometimes I pick on people who leave comments I don't agree with, but you know, that was back in the winter. Mojo was fat, and I could see where you'd think that. I took some criticism about one of my horses being lame and overloaded on a big hitch we did out in Michigan. He wasn't lame, but I could certainly see where people would think that. What I don't want to do is get wound up in that fence. Woo. Amish love their barbed wire. I suppose they don't have any other options. But anyway, I took some criticism. And the horse wasn't lame, to be honest. I could see where you'd think that. What happened was he's just so chill, he rested on 3 legs like a relaxed horse does. You know, a good comfortable horse in the stall will lift up one of those hind legs. As soon as he got done pulling, he's just chilling. That's what he did. Well, I don't see any worms, but I think we're going to give them their spring worming anyway here right away. So, we're going to go right past that spot where he kind of balked and didn't like whatever he didn't like there. We're going to go past that again, and I think you're going to see some improvement. If not, we'll do it a 3rd time. But I can feel him on the lines. He's acting like a horse. I just had to steer him around the corner, and he was quite responsive. Yeah, see how nicely that went that time? He wasn't afraid of whatever scared him the first time. Sometimes all that scares him is the pressure on the lines that he's not used to. Good boy. I try to do a lot of different patterns. I try not to leave the barn in the same direction and do the same figure 8 every day. I try to really have him yielding to my line pressure, not doing something out of routine, but doing it because he's told to. gonna try him right across this plowing. Look at there, that didn't scare him. Ooh. 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 We had a dry fall. Didn't plow easy last fall. This was my fall plow, and this was the best I could do here. No wonder we didn't win any trophies out in Michigan for plowing. Here you go. That horse is standing on the hind leg with one in the air. That's just chill. He's not lame, and neither was Elvis. But I'm not upset for anybody that thinks that. Truth is, if I was watching a video, and I tend to be really critical, if I was watching somebody's video, I might think the same thing. And if I was watching somebody's video with a dog that looked as fat as Mojo, Mojo's a solid muscle, but I'd think the same thing. So, I don't know. Some people are judgy. I can tell just by looking at them, you know? I'm one of them that's judgy, by the way. I might not say a lot. See, there was some bad driving. I had a loose line there. I didn't need to. There you go, he trusted me. One reason you end up loose lining, one, you're trying to walk. You know? And the horse isn't walking straight, and the horse isn't walking at your pace. And the other thing is, you're working the whip also. And I recommend you work the whip yourself, not don't have somebody else do it, because you know, you can feel it in the line. You know when he needs touch. You know, Nick is a top teamster. He's really developing, becoming a good teamster. And Nick wouldn't know when to touch him because he doesn't feel it in the lines if I have the line. And vice versa. If Nick's driving this horse, I wouldn't feel it in the line. You know, I can feel it before it happens often. Or the teamster can. I shouldn't say me. The teamster can. Ooh. Ooh. Well, in about 2 months, I'm going to turn 48. And this field over here that's grown up, a lot of aspen and some other trees there. Ooh, when I was about 9, 10 years old, I remember them growing corn there. That's how quickly things grow up. That's actually pretty good ground. To be honest with you, what happened was my dad used to let them cut across our fields here to get their corn off. And one year, my dad did not like ruts. That's why he was a horse logger. That's why he was a horse farmer. And one year they made ruts awful deep. And the next spring he was bouncing across those ruts when he was plowing. And he told them they can't go across his land. They got to go through the creek, the Ishaway River, to get it. And it was too big of a pain, and they quit farming it, to be honest with you. And so what's that, 38 years ago? 30, somewhere around there, and it's grown up to that. The other end of that, you could probably cut some timber on that. So that's how quickly things change. Of course, there's probably people watching this thinking, yeah, 40 years is nothing. And then there's other people watching this thinking 40 years. That's a damn long time. It's all about your perspective, I guess. And it'll change as we age. It does to all of us. This horse is doing a good job. I worked on this one time yesterday. We're going to work on it right now. Back. Back. Woo. Woo. Good boy. Just, I don't need him to back up like a trained horse. Just a few steps, and if he does it, that's great. Back. Back. And I'm really not even pulling him back on the lines. About the same pressure I used going ahead. And I worked on this once yesterday. Ha. 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 Woo. And that's going to need more work. That's what we're doing. That's why we're doing this. We're going to do this every day until he figures all this out. G. Well, whoa, I don't know if that counts. He didn't move his head, he moved his butt. Get it. Whoa. Whoa. Now I got him confused. He said I told him to back up. So I'm going to give him pressure on the line. There we go. Now it's about an inch away from having Nick lead him for a couple steps. If that didn't work that third time when I called on him and told him to go forward, Nick was going to lead him for a couple steps, but it did work. Don't be afraid to cheat a little bit in these stages. But the whole idea is to get away from that cheating stuff, to get away from keeping a halter under the bridle, to get away from leading him instead of driving him, get away from a hitching rail, all that stuff when it's safe and appropriate. You know, don't get rid of it too soon, but when you feel the training is right, get rid of that stuff and treat him like a horse. Give him some dignity. Yeah, we'll do a little figure 8 here. A little clover coming back. Good boy, G. Good boy. Boy, he's a smart fella. There you go. I did okay myself. I kept a good tight line. Oh. I like an overcheck on a horse when I'm breaking them. Keeps their head up, keeps them paying attention, and they drive so much better. If his head is down, whoa, my gosh, it gets heavy on the lines and he's not feeling my commands and he's just out of position. I am a big believer, and I'm going to do videos on this in the future. I'm a big believer in posture, and your horses will reflect your posture. If you drive and you're slouched, and you don't walk with confidence, your horses are going to walk that way. You step right up there like you mean it and you grab the lines, they're going to drive that way. And I want him in good posture. He's not checked high. Whoa, partner. That's plenty loose. Ooh, not a bit tight. Ooh, good boy. He's not checked high. See the slack in that check? In fact, he's checked looser than his natural position. When he's just standing in the pasture or in the barn, that's where he holds his head, right there. And I've got him checked a little looser than that. I sometimes will even tighten that up, especially after a week or so. And the other, as long as we're talking about that kind of stuff, I start a colt with a jointed bit, a snaffle bit. We always called it a jointed bit growing up. This is, you can show his bit, Nick, an egg butt snaffle. And I've been learning a few things about bits. For one, we always assume that it's really comfortable to have this bigger. And science has been showing that actually a smaller, like just the old-fashioned jointed bit that's not an egg butt, might be more comfortable because it allows them to get a mouth seal instead of holding their mouth open. The other thing I've learned is to hook these a little looser. We used to talk about 1 wrinkle or 2 wrinkles and how tight to hook that. And I've learned that the modern wisdom is to hook them a little looser and actually let the horse pick that up and hold it. So I'm experimenting with those 2 things. Well, I'm not. I'm experimenting with hooking this looser, but I haven't went back because I've got dozens of these. I haven't went back to the old-fashioned bit yet. But anyway, I like to start them there. Colts don't know what bit pressure is. You're not going to have a young horse like this take the bit in his teeth and and be hard on the lines. If you're in good position and you got the lines gathered up right, you know, when you're line driving for the first time, they're not going to get away from you. You don't have to worry about overbidding them and putting a wire bid or something on them. Just go with the snaffle, and you can always go up in pressure, but it's hard to go backwards. It's kind of like truck drivers say, you know, driving a log truck. They say you can go down a hill too slowly 1,000 times, but you can only go down it too fast once. And that's kind of the way it is with this. You can only go upward into a harsher bit, but it's hard to go backwards. Once you've broke them in a harsh bit, it's hard to start with a lighter one. Gonna watch him get them lines in position. Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna take a little of the blame there. I did not start him on a tight line. I kind of loose lined him. We're gonna try it again this way. Tighten up on these lines as I start him. Maybe that wasn't the trick. Woo. Or maybe if I did that the first time, he would have been okay. Woo. The key is, he doesn't know what I expect. Don't get nervous. He's not doing anything. He's not going to run off or back over me or anything. I just kind of walk with him and stop him for a minute, and I can regroup and go again. And if this doesn't work, Super Nick is going to lead him. Get it. There we go. Give him a little more pressure on the whip with that second swing. You know how I relate that is Libby is our matriarch. She's our old mare. And when Libby's out to pasture, standing under a shade tree, and this young horse comes up to her, and she doesn't want him there. What Libby's gonna do is she's gonna lay her ears back and maybe crank a foot or something, or gnash her teeth a little bit, and he'll get the idea. And if he comes up a second time, she does the same gesture and it doesn't work, she's gonna have a little more pressure. You know, she'll look a little more aggressive. The third time, if he's dumb enough to come up a third time, she's gonna come back with her mouth open or kicking or something like that. And that's the pressure it takes to get him to yield. And that's what I just did. My little smack did not start him, so a little harder smack did. It also spooked him right then. That doesn't hurt him any either. Desensitize him a little. Sometimes when they're training, I'll actually do a little of that just so they don't get terrified when they hear a whip or something that sounds like a whip. You know, it's a similar idea to what they call sacking the horse out. I said G, but yeah, right there is the good example. He's following the path. I said G, but I had him on a loose line. He G'd, but it's not because I commanded him to. It's because he's following the path. So, to overcome that, I'm going to take him off the path. Nick, this path does not look like it's going to be fun to plow under. We're going to want a rolling shoulder on to do that. Yeah. Not a joiner. Trying to stay behind them instead of cutting crosswise. Ooh. I'm going to make one last point. Ooh. And that's, if your horse knows whoa, and knows it inside and out and well, and we're working on that. He doesn't know it yet, see? Whoa. But we're working on that. And if he will stop and stand, that gives you a chance to regroup. I learned to drive oxen in my early 20s, to train and drive oxen. I couldn't remember the commands. I couldn't remember where to touch them with the goad stick for what command, or where to stand, or what to say. But I knew damn well if that team knew whoa, inside and out, and stopped and stood there, I could regroup. I actually might have even had a cheat sheet in my pocket And if they knew whoa, there was no issues. Everything else will fall into place. And that's kind of the way this is. That's why we are working on whoa every day. Well, folks, I appreciate you watching, and we're going to be doing a lot more of this. And next step after this will be hooking him single to something behind him, dragging it. And then the step after that will be hooking him with a teammate. And we're not in any hurry to push his training. It's however he is. It's kind of a feel of the trainer, but wherever he is in his training is how quickly we're going to increase it. And we're in no hurry to hook him to anything heavy or too heavy, or take him to the woods, or even plowing. I'd like to do some plowing late this spring with him, but if we don't, we don't. If he's not ready, then the heck with it. We always got next fall. It's more important to me to have a well-trained horse step by step. Somebody in the comments the other day said breaking a colt should be a process, not an event. I really like that, and I'm going to leave you with that.